So I would like to welcome you all to today's Coffee and Pie number 10. Today's topic is the education, school system, everything connected to political Islam and how it's being reflected in the schools, in the universities, in the high schools, in the preliminary schools, and in the curriculum. And for that, I would like to welcome our two guests. One of them is Christian Kla. He is the headmaster of our
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. He's a headmaster of one of the Austrian schools. He's an author of a book, and he's one of the most outspoken people in Austria and in German-speaking countries about the subject of political Islam. Very courageous man, very strong man, and very passionate about the subject of political Islam. Thank you, Christian, for coming.
Thank you.
And second guest is Gregory Hearn. He is an education director for Australia of CSPII, and he's also a goodwill ambassador of C4W, Center for World Understanding, and is director too. And he did marvelous research in Victoria, Australia, about the change or what is being actually taught to the students in Australia in the Islamic education. So, welcome.
Good on you. Thanks, Milan. And hello, listeners.
We also got here Maria, but Maria dropped out for some reason now because of probably internet connection, so she will come soon back. I'm sure pretty about that very quickly. So we can start immediately with the introduction. So I invited you to specifically for the reason because I felt like this is a very serious issue we are facing today, and this is how the pupils, how these students are influenced in the schools and how much we actually know about this as parents, as grandfathers, grandmothers, how much we actually know what's happening in the schools. And do we know it? Do we know what the kids are learning, what the students are learning? And do we know what they are facing in everyday situations? How much we know about this? And for many of our guests who are now coming and for the listeners, may be interesting to hear specifically if they are from United States, Canada, if they are from different countries where the political Islam it may not be so visible, so almost graspably as in Austria. And that's why I think Christian can say many stories, how it looks like from his perspective on his personal stories. So, okay, let's start straight away with Christian. You can kick it off, Christian. What is the situation now? Like, what is the situation? Imagine we have now American audience, global audience on the podcast. What would you say the first thing to our audience?
I think very important is to go to the statistics about what kids are going to schools in cities like Vienna, Linz. So the cities of Austria, also the cities of Germany. For example, the primary schools, already nearly 40% of the kids are Muslim. And Catholic kids are just 30%. And I totally start like a story because I don't have stories just from my school because everybody knows me, so everybody tells me stories. The last stories I hear was that a 9-year-old boy in a primary school, he convinced the girls who has no idea about religion like Islam or something, a Catholic kid, he convinced her to say the Glaubensbekenntnis, the Shahada. And then he told her, okay, now you are Muslim, now you have to wear hijab, now you have to eat halal, now you have to do this. And she was going home and told her mother, Mama, I don't know what's going on. And I just was talking what he said to me. And now and the mother was going to the school. And she said, how it can happen, things like that. And in the school, the teachers were like, oh, we have no control anymore. And in secondary school, the kids are between 10 and 15. It's the same. The most religion is like 40%, or in a school like mine school, Brennpunktschule, hotspot school, it's about 60-70% Muslim kids. So this is changing the culture in the school, because all these Islamic kids, they change the country where they live, but they don't change culture or religion. So they bring a totally other culture to our schools. it's a clash of culture, or in schools like mine, already it's no clash of culture because the Muslims, they make the school, the how it is at school, and some not Muslim kids, they accept it. So we have a totally integration to Arabic lifestyle.
I'm also welcoming here Maria. So she dropped out
Sorry.
before. Now it's here. So wonderful to see you. So because Maria is working for a long time together with Christian in the German-speaking area, and she knows a lot of stories of Christian, she will also guide and ask questions many times specifically directed to Christian. So thank you so much for coming, Maria, and that you're also spending your Saturday with us.
Yeah, you just have heard that in Austria, in some schools, the Islamic mindset is the dominant mindset, and I think it was very clear that Christian said that it's the host society who subverts under the new inbred mindset, which has a very, very Islamic, which is based on Islamic culture, on Islamic texts, on Islamic doctrine, like we in CSPII study it. And that's how we met. Maybe when I was giving my first lecture in Vienna, Christian Klar was sitting in the audience, and at the end he said, "Oh my God, now I know why my students behave like they behave, but what can I do?" And I didn't have an answer to this question.
And now, let's look. Christian is on our podcast, speaking out, writing books, and doing all the things. So this is wonderful.
Yeah, so what maybe that's a good point, because we were sitting together for many times and thinking, what can we do? And that's true. Christian wrote a book. He sensibilized the society to what is going on in the schools. I could participate in telling the people that all this has a source, has an origin, which is found in the Islamic texts. And I would say we started 5 to 6 years ago. Now Christian is an author and a famous school principal who is talking in media, in front of politicians. And I would say we have influence to Austrians politics at the moment. And like Christian, you said before, it's now the turning point. We as a society, we have to decide, where do we want to go? Do we want to submit to a new culture, which is Islamic, based on the Islamic texts? Or do we want to keep our culture, which is our Western culture, built up on a Judeo-Christian human culture with secular governments? And yeah, we all love it and we all want to keep it.
I actually would like to ask one more or say one more thing, that if you have any question, there is a button down below. You can ask question and answers. So please, if you have any question, write it there and we will try to answer as many as we can. If we will not answer that, we will try to do it in the next podcast. We try to also do it. And if you can, please try to do it topic-based so that we can speak specifically about the schools and the educational system. Greg, when you are here, can you tell us what you did in Australia? Because now we heard one story from Christian about how can be the experience of the pupils, the students in the school.
Yeah.
What they actually learn, what they learn. You did something with high schools, please, if you can.
Oh, sure, Milan. And I'm just very interested to hear Chris's view as a inside principal teacher looking out. Mine's very different because I'm not involved as a teacher or a parent of children at the moment. Mine are all grown up. So I'm outside looking in. And to give you a bit of an idea of the interest for me on education and how it works, I go back to 9/11. 9/11 was, everybody knows that. Our education in Victoria was said, we need to know about Islam. It's presented a horrific story at the time. So we need to go in and look at it and understand it. So our education system had a preparation year, 2002, and launched the education curriculum for religious education. We call it text and traditions, religious education on the subject of Islam. So I went about researching that, And the reason I went about researching that was because I had been concerned about Islam. I was involved in CSPII before, but the people I was speaking to at the top levels of religion, education, politics really pushed back on it. So we got involved to study the curriculum. We went to the education department. We said, we want to have a look at the study material for 21 years. The study material was the Quran. That was it. However, each year there would be certain sections of the Quran which would be studied, other sections not. The other thing that we were able to do was we were able to get hold of 21 years of exams. Okay. Now, the exams are all set out in exactly the same way. There was 10 questions per year. They looked the same. They felt the same. And we were able to use the study material that was prescribed and the exam material that was prescribed and get a feel for what the kids are being taught. Now, the kids were being taught about the peace, love, and kumbaya parts of Islam, but they weren't directed at teaching Islam from my point of view. So I don't follow the Islamic doctrine. I would be a non-believer or a kafir. And it said nothing about me. But the issue was the government said we should find out about Islam and how it applies to us because of the event that occurred, but we're not studying that. We're studying the religious component.
When you say the event, you mean 9/11, right?
9/11, yeah. So it didn't make sense to me. If we're wanting to find out the reasons why, we should be studying those bits that they call, that is called out of context or misinterpreted. So 21 years exams, 10 questions per year, 210 questions.
Outcome. What was the outcome of that study?
Outcome. 3 questions over 21 years were about subjugation and violence directed at me. So that means 6 years. So it's three questions out of 21. That means 6 years the kids aren't taught anything about that.
Because
so
I think in your study, what you did in your study, you showed that there's 64% text in the Quran about the kafir, while in the exams were like 1.5%.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So 64% of, and those exams were about Quran. So 64% is about the kafir, while the questions connected to the kafir were 1.5%. So this is a big disparity between those two.
Yeah, it was. And that basically said to me, well, the kids coming through school into university are not going to have a clear understanding of Islam. And that raised other questions. I said, well, what happens at university? So at university, we started to do research into universities and how they teach Islam. And that's been it's bigger than Ben-Hur. It's quite incredible what we're finding through our research. I think that when that gets presented, people are really going to be shocked.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you. More? Please say more.
Well, I'll save a little bit for later. We should share it.
Okay. So I would like to ask Maria specifically to one thing before we go to the questions. I know that you did also in Austria research of the books. It was not the quantitative research, it was a qualitative research. So Greg was quantitative, yours was qualitative. You checked what the kids are being taught, and you checked the books of the history and sociology probably and other books, and you looked into the last 40 years, 30, 40 years, and checked how the narrative, how the idea of what kids are being taught developed. It's not now about to say exact quotes, but if you can make a summary of that, because it's extremely important that we all know it.
Yeah, I think it's important because when we study the Islamic doctrine, then we see that usually the non-Muslims should not be involved in the debate about the Islamic doctrine. So now we did a school textbook analysis how Islam is presented to the non-Islamic children in Austria on the level of history, but also on the level of daily life. And what we have seen that Islam is presented through the Rosa Road glasses. So everybody looks at it and says how beautiful it is and how nice it is, and the families then there is a lot of pro-Islamic promotion for the family. Muslim family is the best family, and it's such a nice family, and they still get the babies, and they have the mothers and the fathers, and so that's a very conservative. Some conservative Christians think, we should copy something according to family, and so here I would like to ask Christian what you see in your school, what family means for the girls. What does it mean for girls being forced marriage, wearing the hijab, or even the worst, being circumcised, undergone FGM. So maybe you can have a light on what family means according to political Islam, according to Islamic submission in Austria. We are talking about Austria, not about Somalia or Afghanistan.
Yeah, for example, I had some years ago, I had a girl, 15 years old. She was forced to marry a man, 25 years old. It was a Chechenian community, and she was forced to marry. And we could do nothing because nobody in the government, nobody in the police, nobody was helping us. Just one small NGO organized, it was a club, Verein, and they helped us a lot. We talked with a girl, we helped her, and finally we could manage to take her out of this. But in Austria, it's happening. Another time, a Chechenian girl told me, in Austria, we can see freedom, but nobody of us can ever live freedom because our parents will marry us with somebody who we don't know. When we are 15, 16, we have no chance. And to tell also this story that 2 weeks ago, one Somali girl, 15 years old, in 1 month.
In your school.
Oh, sorry.
In your school directly.
In my school, yes, yes. Also this forced marriage of a Chechenian girl was in my school. And now 2 weeks ago, the Somali girl was coming to me and she said, I don't want to wear anymore the hijab. I want to find some school or work that I can take a work, and I don't want to be married in 2 or 3 years, and I don't want that my brother and my older sister can hit me every day. And we were bringing this story to the Jugendamt, to the
Office for Youth.
Yeah. And you know what they did? They called the mother and were bringing the girl back. The girl wanted to get out of the family. They called the mother and were bringing the girl back to the family like this is puberty.
Puberty.
Yeah, puberty.
But it's a teenage, right?
Yeah, she's a teenager and now she's back in the family. And in 1 month, we will lose the contact. If in the next 4 or 5 weeks, we cannot take out this Somali girl of the family, she will be married in 2 years for sure. And she will have to get kids and not to work and never have the possibility to have a free woman life. And this is not how Maria said. It's not in Somalia. It's not in Chechnya, in Oman. It is in Vienna, the main city of Austria in the middle of Europe. And I cannot accept this.
Yeah.
And then we discovered something else, maybe just to add this, because it's so, because we had 2 months ago, we had this podcast on FGM. Mm-hmm. So if you believe that FGM does not happen in Austria, so Christian discovered something else. So maybe you can talk a bit about what you discovered according to FGM.
Yeah. So for example, I was talking to a family, no, another headmaster was talking to an Egyptian family about a 20-year-old girl, how she is. And the parents told, yeah, she's very fine, very fine, but we have to fly to Egypt to cut her, because otherwise she will not find any husband in Vienna. And later on, I was telling this to an organization who is responsible for the courses like women course, German courses, everything. And I told them this, and they said, oh, yeah, you're shocked, but it's nothing to be shocked, because we know that there are already some doctors who make it in Vienna. So in Vienna, in the middle of Europe, girls are cut like FGM, and the politicians are not reacting. And this is the reason why I go from one place to the next and I tell my stories, because really we are on changing our society in the wrong way, and I want to stop this.
So,
Chris, and I just want to conclude, because we met a doctor, medicine, 2 weeks ago, Christian and me, and he told us that there is a FGM ambulance going from one hospital to the other in Vienna to give treatment to the women who are undergone FGM and have complications. So that's where we are in Austria, but not to say that the United States is much better. Please go in our webpage and look at the FGM report to make it public that there is so much harm done on little women. And maybe just because it fits now in the flow of the stories of the school, before we hand over to Greg, this is the impact on these poor girls who live in our country to get freedom, but they can't live in freedom because the political Islamic network is strong and huge in Austria, and the state and the non-Islamic host society is not able to protect the girls anymore. And what is also very, very serious is that we are not able to protect the non-Islamic children anymore. And maybe we can point out, because there is a big debate in Austria if we should forbid the hijab or not. And it's very important to know that we have so much we have so much raping, we have sexual violence towards non-Islamic women, and all this has a cause and has an origin. And there are more and more women wearing the hijab because they feel protected. And also in Christian school, there was a story which is very
Maria, I will just add one quickly,
Yeah.
one more thing. Why actually they are protected? Because in the Quran itself is being said that those ones who are not covered can be molested. So if you are covered, you can't be molested or you can't be attacked. But if you are not covered, you can be. So this is a direct Quranic appeal. So it's coming from the Quran. Yeah, please.
Yeah, you can read it in Christian's book. I wanted him to, but maybe Christian, you can
The
tell
other
the story
possibility is I tell you the story.
Yeah, okay.
It was a teacher in another district of Vienna, and he called me and told me that in 6th grade, so 12, 13-year-old kids, one boy of a class nearly raped a girl of his class, but it was outside of school. So like justice, nothing was happening because he was under 14. And like school, nothing was happening because it happened outside of school. So this boy and this girl were still in the same classroom. Unbelievable. But then something else happened. Next day, this teacher called me and said, hey, Christian, what's happening? I know you know something about it. Today, I have 5 girls with hijab who did not wear yesterday. And I said, yes, it's very normal. It is to protect. So he was asking into the class, why are you wearing hijab today and not yesterday? And the girls said, yes, our fathers told us now to wear hijab, that this not can happen to us.
Submission.
Yeah.
Christian, with where I live, I'm in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, northwestern, and there's quite a large Islamic community. One of the schools that I had some communication with, they identified on the term break. So we have 3 terms and they have holidays in the middle. On the term break, young girls would leave the school environment. They'd go back to the countries of their origin, find themselves married. They come back to Australia married and out of school. And that was something that the teachers took as kind of like a normal occurrence. It was standard. Has anything like that happened through Austrian schools?
Yes, of course, it's a business. Like the girls go on holiday in summer and they come back married from Turkey or somewhere else. And this is giving the visa to the new husband. So it's a kind of migration, like marriage migration. But it's also the same that the man, a young man, is going home to his country, for example, to Turkey. And he's 25 years old. In Turkey, he marries a 15, 16-year-old girl. This is giving her the visa. And now a young girl is coming again, but a married girl is coming to Austria. And so from generation to generation, it's always this plus migration because of marriage.
So we're looking at things from the girl's point of view. They've got to suffer through female genital mutilation, and then they've got to go through marriage at 15 or 16. But they don't seem to have much choice, and they've got to wear the burqa. It doesn't seem they've got much choice from any avenue from following the Islamic doctrine.
Yes, they have no choice to go out if we don't change the political system, that we force them to take off the hijab, that we force a control of the genitalian of the girls, that we control the marriage in the mosques, that it's not happening anymore under 18 or 20 years. We have to go into this, otherwise we cannot change nothing in this big change of society.
Yeah, many questions now coming. Gary, I may interrupt you. There are actually many questions connected to financing and to money. And I think this is all prevailing. I'm just getting it all the time here. Multiple questions to that subject. Also, before even the podcast started, we got many questions to the finances. So I would like to go into this. So please, Greg, you can finish what you want, and then let's go into that, because people really want to hear about this.
Okay, so with the submission, we've heard that in Austria the girls are wearing the burqa who are not Muslims girls, and they're doing it to protect themselves. And this is part of the submission. And we had contact with a Coptic priest from Egypt, and we were talking about the subject of female genital mutilation. He happened to be a doctor as well, a medical doctor, and he talked about the whole society adopted Islamic dress, but also traditions such as female genital mutilation. So he pointed out that a significant portion of non-Islamic girls were going through the process of female genital mutilation to fit in with the community. And obviously this has evolved over centuries, but being in a situation where a community feels that it has to submit in Austria, in Egypt, is something that really has to be fully understood. And again, it all comes back to the foundation of our education, how we educate ourselves and how our leaders are educated. So I just wanted to throw that one in.
It was an important point, very important point. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now to the financing of the schools, because there are questions like the money is coming from the Islamic countries into the United States, into Europe, how this influences the educational system, because we know very well that universities in the UK, universities in the United States, universities in Europe are strongly supported and financially supported from the Islamic countries. Is there any agenda, what they want, or is it just, you know, the sheer Großzügigkeit?
Yeah.
You know what
the
I mean?
donation, it's just
Yeah. Just now, because there are now free people from the German-speaking countries, so it's
sorry.
just the question would be, what is usually coming by, and we know it already from before that there is a strong appeal to change the curriculum. There is, and of course there is. I don't know. I don't think there is a lot of investigation going into this, but it should be, because if you look, and there are websites which are collecting. This is usually public information. How much money we watched together, right, Maria? How much money is going into U.S. universities from the Islamic countries, and there are, I mean, from Qatar and United Arab Emirates and from other different countries, Islamic countries, and there is always a question: what is it for? And is it that's the word, generosity. Is it it's a plain generosity, or is it some expectation there? So do you have any extra information to that? For example, from Austria, Christian or Maria, or from Australia, Greg?
Well, I do. From our high schools, we moved into universities. We came across a significant Christian university in Australia, and I ran into a bishop, a religious leader, and he talked to me 2003, a couple of years after 9/11. The university was having some financial problems, and they had a Trojan horse of Saudi Arabia. Somehow Saudi Arabia's decided to come all the way down to Australia and give away some money. So the university was quite happy with that. So they had a meeting. They brought in a meeting for all of the students, sponsors, alumni, religious people, all at this meeting. And it was decided that it was a fait accompli. The deal had already been done. The university had received the money. The Islamic leaders came to the meeting. They spoke beautifully, but they had barbs directed at the non-Muslim and at the board, because they were now in control. But they paid for and bought influence through the university. Now, what happened there was we went through and we did a research. Now, the research we do, it took a year. There was a year full of mistakes, but now we've brought it down to a 20 or 40-hour template where we can do this research on the universities. And when you go through the website, you want to find out what are they teaching about Islam through the university. So you do some keyword searches: Islam, Quran, Muhammad, Allah. And the search results for Muhammad, 0. Search results for the Quran, 0. Search results for Islam, 167. Okay, that's fine. So from those, they're all contemporary type issues that happen about Islam: oil, migration, US foreign policy, nothing to do with the doctrine. We want to go down and look at what the doctrine says. And we identified that the professors and the lecturers who were appointed to run the Middle East departments have Middle East scholarship experience. So they're from there. When the people come in and do the study, the question is, I want to learn about the Quran. Well, they're suggested, well, you need to know about Indonesia and Malaysia, which are our nearest Islamic neighbours. That kind of makes sense. But the deep dive into the doctrine is blocked. Oh, you want to learn about the Quran? Go off to the mosque. So and then you go through a Dawa type process.
There was an interesting situation now. I remember when we were in Melbourne together and we were going into the Islamic Museum of Melbourne, and that was also financed by one of the Islamic countries or one of the supporters from one of the Islamic countries. And I really suggest, if you are in Australia and if you have a possibility to visit the Islamic Museum of Melbourne, where, by the way, we know that the kids from all the schools from the surrounding and from the suburbs are being led to learn about Islam, you will see an interesting, we actually can make some kind of posting on social media about this. We made a lot of pictures from there. I think it's very, very useful to see what the kids are actually learning in such an institution. So it's actually an interesting, another place where people can learn about the subject of political Islam and how it's influencing the mind of the children. Yeah? By, of course, creating such an institution which has immense influence. Thousands of children are coming there to learn about Islam. And the life of Muhammad is written from just one perspective, and this is not the political one.
Yeah.
Maria, please.
Yeah, I want to make the bridge now from money to anti-Semitism, and then I want to hand over to Christian again, because there is an increasing Jew hatred visible all over the world. So starting with the money, yes, we have an specific point. So the specific point was the Islamic doctrine, and it was Mohammed who already said that the Kafir ambassadors, so the non-Islamic ambassadors from abroad, should be influenced by money, and that is happening a lot. It's not only money from abroad, it's also money from inside political Islamic organizations. And there is also a lot of money from non-Islamic organizations supporting political Islam. And maybe this is the area where we can start our education, because we could maybe stop that. So there are 10 million euros now going into a project on education, on Quran, how Quran influenced Europe, coming from the European Parliament. So, and we have the first exhibition in Austria, and it's heavily supported by political Islam. But in 1979, after the Iranian Revolution, there was the attack on the mosque in Mecca, and since then there is a fatwa which says that a huge outreach of the oil income in Arabia should be paid for the international jihad. So there are $6 billion each year flowing to the universities in the United States. And what have you observed in the last decades and in the last years, and especially since October 7th, an increasing Jew hatred on the universities. And of course, this is influenced by money, by professors who are teaching there, who are brought in place. And we are observing the same in Austria. There is a big support for Hamas, we have to say that like it is, for political Islam. And we have a huge increase on Jew hatred. And that's where I would like to hand over the word to Christian, because he has a lot of experience with that in his school.
Yes. I want to start with a small story. A small girl with hijab and abaya was coming to me in the afternoon and said, all the girls in the gym were so bad to me because they were throwing balls on me very badly. And I said, okay, today nobody is here, but tomorrow come to me in the morning and I will punish these girls. And in the morning she was standing in front of my office, and then the sports teacher was coming and she was asking, she's here because of yesterday? And I said, yes. And she said, yes, the other girls were very bad to her. It was unbelievable. You have to punish her, but you also have to ask this small, nice, intelligent girl what she said. Because she said to the other girls, why are you so bad to me? I'm not a bad girl. I'm not a Christian girl. So a very nice girl, not a bad boy, a very nice girl, nice to everybody, but deep inside of her, it is the Muslim are the good ones, the Christian and the Jews are the bad ones. And I also had
this story when the girl didn't want to mention the name of the...
Yes, I wanted to tell it now. This was long before October 7. A teacher was bringing a girl down to me because they were learning about the 5 big religions on the world. And she was telling just 4 of it. And the teacher said, I want her to tell all 5. And I asked her why she's not telling all 5. And she said, no, the 5th one I cannot take in my mouth. Otherwise, it will be so dirty and never be okay again. She could not tell Jewish. This word is so bad that she is dirty. And of course, I forced her to say, but this is showing how more or less normal kids, Islamic kids, how they hate Jews and how they in Europe or in Austria, they can work together with the left ones because the left ones also hate Jews and they hate the Catholic Church. So they all together are going against our society.
And this teacher was a Muslim teacher, I assume, yes?
No, the teacher was a sports teacher. The teacher was the sports teacher, but the girl was Muslim. The girls were Muslim.
The girl who wouldn't take the word Jewish into her mouth because of so dirty, was that a teacher or the student?
No, it was a girl. They learned in history. They learned about the world religions, but she could not tell everything because Jewish. She cannot take in her mouth.
Oh, terrible. Yeah.
I think one of the things connected to the universities and other places, why it's so spreading, and I think this is regardless of the party affiliation, left, right, you can see that right now political Islam is spreading through the right-wing environments because of the conservative values which are on the surface looking like this, like a strong value in the family, strong value in the, I don't know, like in the community, etc., etc. And it looks like that it's on the surface similar. So now in the United States, we can see that the conservatives specifically, and that also within the right wing of the political spectrum, there is growing support of the Islamic ideas because of the unknowingness what actually it's deep inside of that. Because on the surface it may look similar, but when you go deeper you understand that there is like, okay, very strong value in family. Then you go deeper and you understand, okay, man and woman are not equal. Okay, you go even deeper, Islamic polygamy. And then you go even deeper and you see the forced child marriage. Then you go even deeper, you see FGM. So is it really a conservative value and conservative practices? So this is the left wing and the right wing now are really suffering with lack of information all over the political spectrum. And it's actually very dangerous now when we see that, because before it was the left wing, then the right wing, and now both of the political sides are practically in sync, not defending the cultural values of the society. And it's interesting and it's very dangerous, specifically when we see how much money from the Middle East is now pouring from the Islamic countries into United States and Europe, and how much all of the countries are now wanting to make business with Islamic countries, and it always comes at cost. It always comes at cost. It's never for free. And Maria, you can say this, on the beginning, you did this kind of small research in Europe, in the oil crisis. In Europe, what happened? I think you spoke about Netherlands, or you spoke about Belgium. Do you remember that when we spoke about one of those issues when there was an oil price negotiation, and then it happened just by this that the first mosque was built. Can you speak about this? Because that's the first educational center built.
Yeah. That's very important, because we in the 50s, political Islam was not a topic because the industrialization was strong and the people they didn't care about Islam, and that was exactly the time when they started with trade and hijra. So the first mosque was built. The King Abdullah made a deal with the King of Belgium, and they made a deal, the first mosque, but for that they get cheaper oil. And this was in the 60s, 70s, and then it started. good oil prices, and we had a lot of scandals also in these times. And good oil prices, the first mosques, the first migration, which we call hijra. And of course, the mosque was very important because the migrants, they had to adapt to the authority, to their authority, which was in the mosque. And so that's how the parallel society started to being built up in the Western countries. Yeah, it was King Baudouin together with with the Saudi king.
Could I just add a bit onto that, please, Milan?
Sure.
Yeah. The issue of the polygamy, I was having a chat the other day, and the idea is that a Muslim man can have up to 4 wives. So what does that mean? Well, that means there's 3 guys that don't have access to a potential bride. So where does that lead? Migration. Where to? Place like that doesn't have Islam and gives them the opportunity to be able to find a bride elsewhere. So that polygamy and extra wives leaves a lot of men disenfranchised and not in the mating game, which leads to the hijra. That's what I want to throw in there. Thank you.
Hijra, Islamic political migration, just to explain that.
Yeah.
We just used this term already a few times here so that all our audience knows that. We have, by the way, a great report on this. So if you go to CSPII.org into the research section, you will find the report, as Maria said, about FGM, as well as the report on Hijra. And as well, we will also publish in our YouTube, Spotify, and Apple podcasts, this podcast and the previous ones, because we've got this question too.
And there is also a wonderful report on the mosque, on the function of a mosque. And please go and see what a mosque is before you agree in having built a mosque in your neighbor village.
Good question on that. To all 3 of you, if you have anything to say to that. Are children, and what is your take on this? Because we see in the non-Islamic countries that the non-Islamic children are being taken to the mosque to learn about the Islamic culture and the Islamic ideas, and it's happening today, and what they are told in the mosques, right? Because it's many times that the children are, and we can see the pictures and the videos and all over the internet, and it's happening, as we know already in our countries, that the kids are being taken to the mosques to learn about Islam. That actually the education about what Islam is, what is the political part of that, which is usually excluded, it's in the hands of the local Islamic organizations. And that's one of the biggest problems. The universities and the schools didn't take over the responsibility, except of some enlightened people like Christian, the role of educational organizations where the non-Islamic curriculum on Islamic doctrine should be established. Non-Islamic curriculum on Islamic doctrine, not Islamic curriculum on Islamic doctrine for non-Muslims, which is usually the case today. And we are missing, as Greg said, this big part. 64% of the Quran is about non-Muslims, and then we end up with 3 questions in 21 years, 1.5% of all the questions related to non-Muslims. What is this? How people can learn that? What basis they have?
That brings me to a very important question for Christian, and I think that's important, and we don't have so much time left. We are confronted in Austria and in all Western countries with demands, political Islamic demands, demand for halal food, demand for the prayer room in the school, demand for holidays in Ramadan, and a lot of demands. And I think Christian has a very good approach how to resist on these demands. Maybe Christian, you can say some words on that.
Yes, and I think I want to put also on this the sports, because I'm coming from sports, and normally it's not allowed to wear any cap or whatever on sports. And the swimming wear is exactly, but now already Nike and Adidas, they maybe also it's Islamic money, because they show like new sports hijab, sports wearing, running clothes and everything. And for me, there's just one answer. We have to make a very clear stop line, a red line. Like I would like the Minister for Education that he says in Austrian schools there are no hijabs. In Austrian schools there are no begging rooms. In Austrian schools we don't have halal food. And if you don't like this, look for another country. I think this is the only answer we can give. Otherwise, they will go step by step. Let us just the begging rooms, just the hijab, just the halal. And finally, we are Islamic schools in the public schools.
I have one interesting thing for Greg, because you actually thought it through into the future a bit in the whole study what you did. By the way, you can go to CSPII YouTube channel and watch the whole video with the results of the study. You thought it like 3 chess moves ahead. That please just finish what I will start it and you can finish it, because you did something that the people go through that educational system with this minimal knowledge of political Islam, and then they go into different positions, and now, please. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So what happens is the kids' book, the Quran, is presented. They learn the soft version. They move into high school, the same sort of thing. They move into universities, and they're taught by Islamic influence. And that Islamic influence is not the Islam that's meant for me. That's ignored. Then the kids move into careers, and those careers can be as diverse as media, finance, law, politics, education, religion, all manner of positions. And after 21 years of education, I can imagine a man who's a manager, 50, 60 or 70 years of age, looking to his 40-something who's now moved up into influential place within the department. Have we missed anything? Is there anything that we don't know about? And the 40-somethings are going, everything I saw was lovely, beautiful, wonderful. But it's inaccurate, and it's not a full disclosure of the doctrine, how it applies to the non-Muslim. And that, I think once people realise that and they spend a little bit of time understanding that, I think the answer to Islam will be understood very, very clearly. But we need our leaders to be able to make critical thought on what is being taught and what is not. And yes, we do have a great video, so I'd really like it if you come out and look for Gregory Hearn, CSPII, and it goes for about 24 minutes. There's a lot of good information in it.
Thank you.
Is that right?
I think that this is a very important information, because it is not just that it stops in the schools, it starts in the schools. Today, many people who are educated in this twisted educational system are coming into careers and are the advisors to the government, are the advisors to the local cultural center, are the advisors, people who really learned about the Islamic doctrine, just what they should have learned according to the Islamic influence, Islamic political influence. So I think the change is necessary, because it's not what they know, but it's what they don't know, as Greg likes to say always. Yeah, it's about how much you don't know. It matters, and there is a big portion of information people don't know. Okay, is there anything else what we can speak about of your experiences, because we are getting close to the end of the podcast? Maybe some kind of the closing words from all of you, and then we can also speak about CSPII a little bit and how we can get involved.
Quick story. Through my involvement, I started to speak to higher up type people, and I came across a guy who was very high up in the Pacific Rim counter-terrorist organisation, and I had an overseas journey to go to this meeting. So I did some research on the guy, and the guy was a leader in the Afghanistan war, and he presented an operation that they did. They had a valley, they had a target, and they sent in special service air soldiers in to attack this target. on top of the hills were the jihadists with their machine guns. The helicopters were destroyed. The soldiers were all decimated, gone. And he stood up on his presentation. This is the leader, and he said it was the fault of the junior officers. And I said, oh, come on. So he went on and explained about the junior officers. Now, Afghanistan was about 20 years ago. Before that, Russia was at war with Afghanistan. He said the junior officers should have been talking to the Russian counterparts. At that time, they were kind of close and should have been chummy. Now, when they have an operation, they have an operations report, and that's the good, the bad, and the ugly as to what's happened. The Russians, 20 years prior, did the same sort of mission. Helicopters in, special services, same target, same valley, same machine guns, same result. All dead. Now, he leant forward on his podium, put his hands on the podium, leant forward a little bit and said, we should have read the operations manual, the operations report. And I got that, and I said, when I'd asked him the question, have you read the Quran? Did you understand the Quran? He said, difficult, confusing, contradictory. He hadn't read it, but he outsourced it to the Islamic monopoly. And the key thing is, when he's talking about counter-terrorism and when we want to come and present our education, the idea was that he wouldn't look at the operations report, the operations manual, the Quran and the doctrine, because that is key to everything. And what I received from them was that they wouldn't be prepared to look at it because of whatever their reasons were. So now, that's education.
And now we are here as a CSPII and doing our best with all of us and with Christian, you and Maria to educate the world, and of course with all of the people who are here on the call. I suppose that you do also your best about the subject of political Islam. So thank you, Greg, for your closing words. And Christian and Maria, do you have anything to say to the society and to the people, what you believe it's important to know about education and educational systems and the people and what we can do actually? Should we give up or should we do something? What do you think? And I know the answer already, what you will say. I don't know what you say, but I suspect the answer.
If I can start, I want to say, you know, we think war is between two countries and with weapons. But I think Europe and Austria, it is already an inside war. And we have to accept this. And I'm convinced that we have the best values, the best way of living, what you can imagine. But if we want to have still in the next years and decades this way of living, we have to stop this influence. You know, there is one sentence like, if you want to save the tolerant world, you need to be intolerant against the intolerance. And we need to have this sentence very, very clearly. And we have to be intolerant against this influence of the Islamic people who want to bring another culture, another way of life, where not men and women are equal, where not whatever democratic system, everything is happening. I want to save all this. So we have to win this inside war. We are already in a war in Europe, maybe also in the States, maybe also in Australia and Canada and all the other countries, but for sure in Europe, for sure in Austria. There are not so much years left to turn, to have success in the turnaround.
We have to connect also internationally like we do today. And please stand up, speak out, use our materials. If you need anything, let us know. And let's speak out and let's convince the people. And maybe my suggestions for everybody in the moment is, do not include Islamic authorities when you want to solve cultural problems. Do never include the people with Islamic background, because you can't handle it. And it's that's my suggestion for today. Thank you very much. And yeah, see you next time.
Thank you so much. So for my closing words from my side, there is one last comment which came right now, that the US inside war is being lost. I do believe that what we are doing here, and it's for the first time in the history when so much knowledge about political Islam is available in the society. And political Islam, it's not strong at all. It's very limited. It's limited by its doctrine. And if you know the doctrine, you are able to start to dismantle different systems and structures which are built up in your country. So the key is knowledge of the Islamic doctrine itself, the Sirah and the Quran and the Hadith. If you know it, you know, as Greg said, the operations manual. Operations manual is very simple. It's the trilogy. And if you know it, it's very limited. Jihadis, different representative of political Islam, Islamic governments, they act according to the same operations manual. It's not so creative as people may think. It's everything inside. So you can start to predict by reading the Islamic doctrine itself the future. And I'm serious. Yeah, when we now heard a cleric from Egypt inviting the president of the United States to convert to Islam, we know what does it mean, because there is a hadith. If you don't do that, and if he rejects, there can be a jihad waged on him, violent jihad against the president of the United States. So we know that because, for example, Osama bin Laden himself called United States to convert to Islam, and obviously the United States decided not to. And then when Bill Warner saw it, he said it will for sure come, because if you know the doctrine, you know what comes after such a call. So knowing the doctrine means knowing the future and also changing the future. So it's very important. So I believe we will be successful in our mission, and always remember we do it as Christian is doing it also, and thank you for this, Christian, that we do it also for the Islamic community itself. How much suffering, how heartbreaking it must be for that specific Somali girl not to be able to choose her own fate. So let's give the opportunity for people to choose their own fate and their own future by educating about the subject of political Islam. It's really enough. Thank you.